Students, I wanted to take just a couple of minutes to show you something about an often overlooked type of internal assessment you could do. Now, before I jump into this, you'll notice I'm in this worldometer thing about coronavirus. But before I jump into this, I do want to say that in general, an experiment is preferred, and sometimes looking at a database is seen as like a second best alternative or an alternative when someone couldn't pull off or accomplish what they wanted to do in a true investigation. That doesn't have to be the case, and I don't want to just not have you look at databases because if you're interested in something and it sparks an interest in or a deeper interest in you to look into something, look at the biology of something, then it's a perfectly acceptable choice. But again, experimentation is the preferred thing, but you won't be graded down for doing something like a database-driven approach. All right, so databases. There are many kinds of databases. There's protein sequences. There's other kinds of DNA or genetic sequences available. There's many more, and I've given you some links to those. But this is something that I've been paying attention to this pretty regularly because it's of interest to me. And if you scroll down on the page itself, they only have current, which is always not complete. I don't know who's gathering this data. I mean, who the person is, but this website's putting this together. Or you look at the day before, it's going to be complete. And what they've got, they have total cases, new cases, and total deaths and new deaths every day. Then I guess they're calculating these as they go. Now, there are other visualizations you can get off to the side of some of these. Oh, there's nothing here. So I'm realizing I have cut my screen a little bit. Let me just slide this over a little bit. There we go. So you can order these by case. Having trouble getting that to go right now. Rank from low to high, from high to low. You can alphabetize it, and you can rank them by any one of these. They do some basic calculations for you, like deaths per million of the population and total cases per million. So they have all that, and they have tests per million. So there's lots of interesting things you could possibly look at. Now, when you do an internal assessment, you are asked to make a connection between one thing and another through looking at data, as if you collected the data. So I'm just going to show you a possibility here. There's lots of countries here. If I were to highlight every aspect of this, I don't like my page view right now. These last few pages don't really matter, but I'm just going to highlight the entire thing. Being careful not to get the actual web page, and also trying to be quick so don't waste a bunch of download time. So if I copy this, I just did a copy, and I'm going to go to a spreadsheet I've got, and you can do this in Google Sheets as well. I'm going to paste it right here. Okay. Now that I've got it in here, I can do things with the data. Okay. Now, going back to this for a minute, seeing how this only yesterday, I can only, in a couple months' time, if you come back to this, what's going to be here, I don't know. There would definitely need to be some effort on your part to look at this daily change. I mean, you could look at one individual country and measure the changes per day, but you'd have to find some way to measure that against something else. There are so many possibilities, and I don't want to try to steer you to one. I want you to find your own thing to investigate. So let's go back to the spreadsheet. Now, once I've got this, I can delete rows. I can do all sorts of things. So I'm just going to show you something I was curious about. And so I actually just looked at the death rate. This was on May 23rd. What I did, I took a page and I deleted everything except for the name of the country, the total cases, and the total deaths. So I could get a death rate. I wanted to see how many people died out of the total cases by that day. I think it was May 23rd. So you can see that the countries that had the highest death rate here. And, that's interesting. Now, I could rank this. This is not, I have ranked it. I could show this data, but this is not what is a complete internal investigation. I've done something that, besides the know-how of knowing how to rank and order and all these kind of things, I haven't done anything of any interest, any connections. What I would need to do is say, why do countries have a high death rate or a low death rate? And specifically, I wouldn't necessarily do research on St. Martin or Belgium, which is actually astonishingly high, I realize. But again, this is on one day. You don't know. If this happened just yesterday, if it went back 3 days ago, then it would be 0%. So it's something that changes or can change. We'd have to get the death rate by the end of this, after all the cases have come through. But anyway, why do countries have high death rates? What do low countries? So I have to find something to compare in these, something else like access to health care, socialized medicine, per capita income, form of government, economic stability, whatever you think you can look at to find a connection of something you could do. So since I've done this, I'll just show you. I did a couple other things too. Here I just looked at the total cases and the active cases. I was trying to see how many on May 23rd, just to get a flavor of how strong or active currently on this day is the disease. So in Lesotho, there are 2 active cases out of 2 total cases. So 100% of their cases are active. Well, that tells you something that, well, they've just had those 2 cases. I mean, that's their first 2 cases. So clearly they have 100%. But it might not be a big problem. It just, on that day, it allowed, this allows you to see which countries are having more activity in coronavirus, meaning they have more active cases out of the total right now. And of course, as you go down, you can find these countries that have probably been dealing with it for a longer period of time. Like China's way down here at 0%. It's actually 82 out of 82,000, so it's vanishingly small. I just have it set to give me a whole number. All right, so these are things you can do, but you, again, have to find a way or find a question you can ask yourself to say, what is this connected to? Why are there countries, or what about countries makes them have a higher death rate or a lower death rate or higher susceptibility or stuff like that? So that's what I wanted to show you. You could do things like scatter plotting, but you'd have to find some other variable to compare the variable here. And with that, I'm going to leave this for you to think about on your own.